Hey, I'm Chad Christopher. Welcome to the Undercover Adventure podcast. Today we're talking to Kirk Eddlemon. Kirk is a whitewater legend. He's been in the industry for decades. He's written 2 guidebooks that are useful for the southeastern United States, over in western North Carolina, and the Plateau. And I hope you enjoy the show. Yeah, so I did want to get some of your perspective on that because you understand like how the water moves off of formations, and you've got that unique perspective more than probably any other person I've talked to. But
I've got the curiosity more than the expertise, but that's usually a precursor to just always learning a little more all the time. But I've always been fascinated by just landforms in general, even before I was a paddler, and once I got my driver's license and could actually start exploring like Tennessee State Park system and all these little pocket wildernesses. And, there's a lot more of it now. Like Tennessee's done a good job of like stewarding their public lands, creating more opportunities to experience them. But, even when I was a kid in the late 90s, just driving around, exploring, I was fascinated by why some things stuck up higher than other things, just the topography of the landscape. And the geology is really the hard and fast underlying reasons for why everything kind of looks the way it does now. And,
right.
So that was always kind of, intriguing to me, and probably informed why I chose geology more out of curiosity than out of like a pragmatic like career plan, which, played out thusly because I didn't, I don't work as a geologist anymore.
So did you grow up in Tennessee?
Yeah, I grew up in Knoxville. Actually, kind of grew up on the outskirts of the suburbs. So I was on the far end of the suburbs in West Knoxville, and so kind of lower middle class suburban neighborhood. And right behind my house, we had a few acres of woods, and then there's a bunch of cow pastures, and just it was right on the boundary of burbs and rural Tennessee, like everywhere else. And so even growing up in the burbs, I mean, there were benefits to being in an urban area, but I always kind of spent a lot of time riding my bike out into the country, or friends and I used to cut a lot of trails to ride our bikes on. Back before mountain biking was kind of a word, we'd just ride our bikes back there. And I always kind of actually really did enjoy showing people around, like the neighborhood kids, taking them on the trails we cut, or, we were little, we built forts in the woods, and we always wanted to take people back and show them stuff. So I now being an outdoor guide, I look back and go, I didn't think about it in that way as being a potential career path at all. Yeah. And I think even when I was in college, I really had no plans of being an outdoor guide. I really didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that successful people went to college, and so I was fulfilling that line of code.
Right.
Thoughtlessly.
Did your parents, like, you come from an outdoor family, or was this kind of something that you...
Kinda. I mean, I guess I would say my dad was definitely outdoorsy. He was like an ultra marathon runner, and so like he was the first person to run the length of the Smokies. Now they call it the SCAR, but it's the 70 miles of the AT through the Smokies. He was the first person to go under 24 hours, I think in 1983. Now, it's down to, I don't even know, 15 hours or whatever.
So you've got you come by the DNA, honestly.
I think so, yeah. I would honestly describe my family more like if I drew some amount of inspiration from them, it'd be more like just the passion. And I've got a lot of family members in the arts, a lot of Juilliard trained musicians, people. I've got several family members living in New York doing theater, and so I guess my family's always had a tendency towards the dramatic, like in a just soaking up the enjoyment of life and being inspired, letting your curiosity and your creativity fuel how you move in life. So I really was into music more than anything when I was a kid.
What'd you play?
I played drums, kind of moved into guitar a little bit. I was in the high school band as well, so that just music was and still is kind of, I always got a song in my head. So
hey.
But the creativity that kind of comes along with that, once I started exploring the outdoors, really to me, I was just always open-minded to new ways of doing things. And exploring, obviously, for me, has kind of probably always been the fundamental element motivating my moves, is just like seeing new things, not knowing what's around the bend, answering that question over and over and over again.
Indefinitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, at what point did it go from, just outside, just like naively just exploring the world around you to like the whitewater introduction piece?
It was, my dad took me whitewater canoeing when I was a kid. We just did the Chota Canoe School down on the Hiwassee every year. We were in Chota, the local Knoxville club, and every year we went to that paddling school, and there were no kayaks, mind you, maybe one in the whole school. Otherwise, it's whether you were single or tandem. That was it.
Okay.
And the best paddlers usually had a lit cigarette, dangling from their lip. I mean, it was kind of a beautiful era, right?
Yeah.
Like a young moment in whitewater. And
maybe or maybe not inebriated during that. No, just
maybe. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't about whitewater. It was just like, oh, there's this beautiful, clean, clear, cold running river running through a wilderness area where you don't see any development. And anytime they were teaching us whitewater maneuvers, I was kind of just bored. I was like, I just want to go tinker around, explore, and all that. And so that was kind of the setting. And of course, we did some hiking with my dad being an ultra marathoner. We did some hikes, nothing super gnarly. We got into paddling. I think my dad was drawn to it for the same reason I was, just kind of exploring, having cool experiences. So we did some overnight canoeing, and probably a big trip was in 7th grade. We went and did a 5-day overnighter in the Okefenokee Swamp down on the Georgia-Florida border.
I've been on that. I've done that.
Yeah,
that exactly.
5-day.
Yeah,
the loop.
Yeah, the loop.
It's not a thing anymore.
Sleeping on the platforms.
Yeah,
really.
They kind of changed how they manage it. It's not really a thing anymore. But that was, I do remember feeling like, wow, we just got in our boat. And there you have to navigate. It's not, on the river you can't get lost, right?
Yeah.
But in the swamp you kind of have to navigate, and you've got, currents opposing you, wind. You're kind of triangulating off a lot of forces trying to navigate your way around. But waking up the next morning and then realizing we're just going to do more of this today, and then again and again, that was definitely inspiring, realizing like how deep of an experience you could have. I guess I was 12 or 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I started dating Martha, I took her on that trip.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this girl can handle sleeping on platforms, alligators, mosquitoes. Like,
there's some adversarial conditions, but we went in like February, March. February, early March is kind of that magic time where the temps are good, but the bugs aren't bad yet. But yeah, a little. We had encounters with alligators, and trying to figure out how to keep our food away from the raccoons.
You were hooked. You were like, this is it.
Yeah, pretty much. But all that said, when you're at the behest of your parents when you're a kid, and like I said, we grew up in the burbs. I was, active in school and hanging out with friends in the neighborhood. I mean, that's an era, and we're of a generation where when you got your driver's license, that was the definition of now I'm mobile. Now I'm fully actualized as a human being. So driving around, causing trouble, but also driving around and doing outdoor stuff. Once I had my license, I remember doing my first backpacking trip, which we never went backpacking when I was a kid. We weren't in scouts. It kind of wasn't that direction. And so I really didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I remember just going through the garage and just loading everything that looked like backpackers might bring that with them.
I might need.
Oh, yeah, just threw it in a pack. Hiked to Virgin Falls, slept down below the falls, and froze our butts off. I had like I don't know what the temp rating. It was probably like a 50-degree bag, and this was like second week in March, and freezing at night. And I remember like putting socks on my ears and like on my face, like everything I had, just to like
16, 17.
Yeah. So I would say like
Were you doing it solo, or were you with people?
With some friends, my cousin, a couple other friends. From school. And so I didn't have that kind of outdoor silver spoon where I came from this lineage of folks who just really had an expertise for the outdoors. It was more just a general passion for life, but then of course my dad got me started down that road. But once I got into college is really when I was able to, I was working, I was earning my own money, I was going to school, my free time, I could do whatever I want. And that's when I really got into whitewater and just discovered that there are other rivers than the Hiwassee and the Ocoee. There's quite a few more.
There's a couple.
Yeah, and I had no idea. I pre-internet, there's something beautiful about growing up and just not knowing what's out there and being super stoked about where you are.
Yep.
And then each reveal of like, oh, there's another place. Yeah. It's kind of like a really awesome experience to just have those slow reveals of there's more.
So I'll shift gears a little bit. Kind of, if you can give us like a brief overview of like kind of your college path and then like where geology took you and kind of a little bit of your professional career, because I love your perspective. Whenever I've paddled with you or just like sitting around a campfire, you kind of view everything through this geology lens, which is awesome because you're like, oh yeah, that's this new schist, or this is this formation, and this is this kind of sandstone, and it's just cool to get the building blocks of the stuff that we go out and recreate on and enjoy. Yeah. That nobody, no one looks at it like that. So
right. Well, like I said, when I was going to school, now that I look back, it's obvious. Everyone around me in the UT Geology department was either on their way to Houston or they were going to stay in academia. And I still like my colleagues from that era. I see them, they're professors, they're working in the oil industry, maybe they're doing environmental consulting or something. But I really didn't have a plan at all. I just thought rocks were cool, and I really wanted to understand more. Initially, I started in geography, and then I kind of realized if I wanted to go deeper, I wanted to switch it up to geology. But I got out of school. Not long after I graduated, we had Alex. So my wife and I had Alex. I was 25 when he was born. So it wasn't long after I graduated that he's born, and now we're thrown into this, well, I just need a job.
Yeah.
So I kind of just took the first opportunity I had and started working for a seismic consulting firm, which sounds fancy, but really it's basically just anywhere they use blasting to break big rocks into small rocks, there's a lot of regulations and required compliance monitoring. So we're like a third-party company that does that monitoring. Okay. So like for this highway project back here, we just set up seismographs, make sure when they're breaking the rocks and doing the grading work that they're not exceeding vibration limits, not causing any problems with local structures. But we also worked in rock quarries. I spent a lot of time in coal country up in Harlan, Kentucky, all the way up towards Russell Fork. Bridge jobs, strip malls, developments, rock slide mitigation. I worked on the Ocoee rock slide.
Okay.
Several slides in the gorge on the Pigeon. It was a cool job. I got to move around locally, and I wasn't doing hard geology, but, I was just tangentially associated with mountains, rock removal, just all this stuff kind of kept me moving around. It was a pretty cool job and kind of satisfied me in that way. But I wouldn't say I saw like a long-term future in it at the end of the day. It was just good old boy network, making deals, shaking hands.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what it boiled down to. And I probably could have stuck with it for a while. My company got bought, squeezed by a private equity group. They kind of gave us all raises, put us in suits, put our pictures on the website. And I remember going around, I audited all our operations throughout the U.S. Like I was in California, the Northeast, all over, basically getting all these remote installations as optimized, energy efficient, reliable as possible, making sure everything was squared away. And then once we had kind of gotten all that done, they laid off about half of us. And they kind of chose to keep folks that they could tell would always be
play
willing
ball.
to do what they're told.
Yeah.
And I think I might have just gone kayaking a little, one too many times during. And it's funny. My boss had his golf clubs in the car. I had my kayak like in the car, and we'd look at each other when we left, and just kind of give that nod of like, I know where you're going.
Yeah, I know where you're going.
But once I got laid off, I had been started kind of working on this guidebook project, and that's like a multi-year. That's a big project. And so once I got laid off, I said, well, we're about a year from publication. I'm just going to take this year and just pour all my heart and soul into doing the finishing touches on this guidebook series. And I also kind of started apprenticing as a home inspector. So I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll do some of that later. And then my buddy Todd Scott, who's a paddler, he got me hooked up with his logistics company. So I was doing like truck driving to like Quebec and British Columbia, delivering boat trailers for him. And conveniently, there was no return load. And so my 70-hour reset for driving, I would hook up with friends and go kayaking up in Canada. And so I always found a way. I always seemed to be moving back towards kayaking. And I started working at Blackberry Farm in the Smokies, kind of a high-end outdoor resort, doing guiding there. And then I started working for Joe Gudger at Ace Kayaking. I just called him out of the blue one day, told me to come down and shadow. And I shadowed him on a lesson. And I don't know, right out of the gate, I was like, I love this.
Yeah.
And I know I can't make any money doing it, but this will be nice. I can do a little kayak instruction while I'm in this transitional phase, getting these books out the door. And that's really all I thought of it. Like I said, I always felt like guiding is something I always enjoyed. I just never really thought of it as something that I could really do. But once the book came out, I had already kind of started developing a little bit of clientele. You know, Joe's feeding me a lot of clients working for Ace. But once the books came out, they actually did really well. We hadn't had a comprehensive set of books for the Southeast up to that point. And, you know, these are like modern, beautiful, full color photo, just aesthetically appealing books. And I tried to pour my heart and soul into the writing. And they took off, and they kind of springboarded me and gave me some momentum on instruction and guiding that I wasn't expecting.
Okay.
And within a year, all of a sudden, you know, the project's solvent. It's trickling in what it's trickling in. And now I'm fully focused on developing clientele. I ditched the home inspecting. The truck driving thing kind of faded out. And still worked at Blackberry Farm for about 5 or 6 more years. But they were getting less and less of me as I was able to start doing more instruction. And going back to that creativity thing, the cool thing that's just kept me fresh on it and stoked is I'm the master of what I'm offering. So like I started thinking about, well, what kind of things can I offer the paddling community as far as education and guiding? So I started doing self-support overnighters, teaching people how to, you know, live out of their creek boats. And so we do a lot of like 3-day multi-days up here on the Cumberland Plateau. And just, you know, we started doing beat down sessions, getting people practice getting in and out of holes. And so I started just being able to be creative and just offer whatever I want. There's having that autonomy and just authorship over what you're doing. I mean, as you know, you're a small business owner. You're kind of doing your own thing. It gets you up every morning, right? So
you have to.
Yeah.
You don't really have a choice. Let's go back to when you first started like getting into like the kayaking progression, the whitewater progression. So like you know, there are other rivers out there we figured out besides the Ocoee and the Hiwassee, and then you start getting, you know, progressing through class 3, class 4, getting into some of the harder stuff. What were some of the earlier runs that you went on, like maybe exploratory, like class 4, class 5? Like what were some of the things that got you hooked on that side of whitewater?
Man, it's a blur. You know, being a guide, I've spent so many days on the water. I've been doing 200 to 300 days for 25 years. And my memory is starting to fade. And I run into people all the time now, and we talk about these things we did 20 years ago, and then it's like this vivid rush of oh, wow, like there was a lifetime lived in that day, and I've almost forgotten it entirely. But I would say early on, I had my role, I had my own stuff, and I had kind of loosely, in between my friends at UT and people from the paddling club, I started identifying victims or participants who could come with me. I always had a harebrained idea and made a lot of mistakes, a lot of dumb things.
Have to.
But dragging people along with me and just exploring.
Did you start exploring in the Smokies first?
Yeah, a lot of exploring. And, you know, I came into this late enough to where most of the potential first descents I've got to my name have got asterisks. Yeah. Whether it's like, oh, first descent with water in it, or first modern descent, or there's always a qualifier you got to put in front of these things. And I mean, exploration was somewhat played out when I got in. I would argue that there was still more exploring to be done, and we did some of that. But chasing new experiences was pretty exciting, and I probably was maybe overly enamored with trying to be first, or trying to have the idea of having an objectively new experience somewhere. Like maybe you're paddling in a plastic kayak through a place that hasn't happened before. Mm-hmm. What does that feel like? Is there something intrinsically different about that than just doing another lap on sinks to the elbow? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I still am not sure there's a there like I thought there might have been back then. But I remember just going all over the place. Anything that had an AW description or was in like Monty Smith's guidebook, or there was any buzz about, I was going exploring. So I remember us doing a lot of high water, Trail of Tears, Tiny Piney at flood, exploring a lot of these mediocre creeks in the Tellico, Hiwassee area.
Yeah.
The rock there is just a little janky and abusive and doesn't channel well, but like with enough water, you could get down like Coker Creek, Conasauga Creek. Looking back, stuff like, now I'm kind of jaded, and I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever do any of these runs again. It's that having that twinkle in your eye when you first get into it is fuel for a lot of adventure. But now I feel like, I just like a good powder day on the right run.
Yep.
I'm more of a creature of habit. That maybe when I was younger, I would look upon the creatures of habits as like lacking industriousness
gusto,
or creativity. But
you kind of need like youthful naivety a little bit, like mixed with a lot of testosterone and energy.
Yeah.
Like you kind of don't need to, like if you have too much knowledge of an area or a run, you don't have the like, I can do this. That needs to go along with it. I don't know.
And not knowing if you actually have what it takes to do something is another element that was probably totally fueling me for a long time. Was watching LVM. LVM was kind of like, that was the video series. That was our local pros, our local hot shots, right?
Yep.
And so I very much was watching those to see what these guys were doing, and then thinking, I don't know if I've got what it takes to do what these guys are doing. But then slowly getting into position to be able to start going and being like, we can kind of go to these places if we go at low water and take twice as long and walk half the rapids. And like we did a lot of early. I mean, I think I was a class 4 boater when I did the Raven Fork for my first time. And it was a bunch of us. None of us knew it. None of us had ever done it. We were there the day after. Whoever was there the day before with the good flow, taken all day, 12 hours, just go a mile and a half. But we ran Mike Tyson's.
That's right.
And like, that was life changing.
Yeah.
Right? And we're like,
we did
fast forward like 8 years, we're going in there 2 hours before dark and doing like a 1 hour lap, with minimal portaging, going fast, no words, just eye contact. And so we slowly built that. We didn't really have a group of top end paddlers who were like cradling us into this opportunity of privilege to be able to do this stuff. We kind of had to get in there and make all our own mistakes. And I mean, that's a recurring theme of being young anyway. It's like your parents or, your elders are like, they tell you truth. And then you go, yeah. I have to go learn this all on my own through hard experience for years, to know it the way you know.
Well, they tell you the truth up to that point.
Yeah.
That, like, this is the knowledge that's been acquired to this level.
Yeah.
Now go, if parents are, if you are the kind of parent that you should be like, go add to this, go build on this. Oh,
yeah. I mean, that's, being a parent, that full circle. It's not just that you're living in the full circle, you kind of directly experience that, pass something on to your kid, eventually if you have grandkids, I'm sure that's a whole nother valence of full circleness. But just seeing that's how, as humans, we do anything, we get anything done. I mean, paddling has just continued. People continue to get better. designs continue to get better. Everything just continues to get refined. And so I'm stoked I came in where I did, but I'm still riding the coattails of whoever's on the envelope. I want to see what they're doing, how they're doing it.
I try to keep tabs on like what's coming around, what's getting developed, it's wild.
It's amazing.
It's wild.
Yeah, being in instruction, I've got obviously a utilitarian need to stay up on the latest. And that's a big thing. Like both Joe and I have at Ace is like, we're not here to give you the old faded envelope of paddling tropes and techniques. We want to stay up on what's happening right now and pass that down to our students. And before I started teaching, like that, I definitely had when I was a professional, I had way more drive to go have adventures. Every split second that was not spoken for by work or time that I devoted to spend with family, I am like going to 11 on the scale, trying to fit everything in, fly out to the West Coast for 10 or 11 days, sleep when you get home. The goal was like, however many days we paddled, we needed more runs.
Yeah.
Than days.
Yeah.
Like we needed to be doing double headers when we could remember getting off the plane in Seattle and like sleeping at the put-in for Ernie's Canyon. And that next day we do, show ourselves down Ernie's and then drive to Robe Canyon on the north side of Seattle to meet a friend for like our first run on that. And then like that set off this week and a half long trip of like double headering every day all the way into BC. And it's funny now, I get so much fulfillment being with my students all the time on the water. My probably 5% of my paddling or less is personal paddling. And I think a lot of my friends, they say, gosh, I mean,
yeah,
isn't that hard? You're always on. And then you don't get a lot of your own personal paddling time. But I get so much fulfillment now being on other people's adventures and like supporting them on their growth that I just don't need that much from paddling anymore. And now when I do, there's no stakes. There's no me I need to be.
Yeah.
When I choose to go paddle on my day off, there is not one element in my body that says, well, it needs to be something that you would be proud of and that you would be proud to show to the community. Gosh, on his day off, he went out and soloed the Linville or something like that. Yeah. Like, I don't feel the need for that anymore. Like, I'm really just fully motivated by the aesthetics of the actual experience that I'm thinking about doing. And so there's liberation in that. Like, there is. I don't have to try to put something out there anymore.
Well, I want to get into the guidebooks and I want to get into what you're doing with Ace later on, but like what are some of the, like, tell me some stories of like just some of the obscure places maybe in the US or Canada, or like what are some of the exploratory stuff that you did when you were like getting after it?
Yeah. Oh man.
Or what are the first things that come to your mind when you're like, that was a day?
That was a day. Oh my gosh. A lot of it's stuff that's been done. I guess the Jannies and I and Evan Stafford, we went out and tried to do someone had just recently done the first descent on the North Fork of the Little Wind in the Wind River Range in Wyoming. We're kind of out there to do the Clark's Fork box. That was kind of our main goal, but we were going to be out there for a week and try to fit in as much as we could. And I remember it was kind of the first time that one of my harebrained ideas was no longer being foisted upon like people who didn't know what they were getting into. These guys are all veteran paddlers. We're all kind of, this is my harebrained idea, and I'm subjecting legitimate paddlers to this. We're gonna find out what happens. And it was classic. I had it mapped out. It's going to be a 5-mile hike in. And as the crow flies, I clicked my little mouse and looked about 5 miles to me. And I always did a lot of front end work, satellite imagery, topo maps, scrubbing the internet for the blogosphere, figure out any type of info that might be helpful. And of course, it ended up feeling more like a 10-mile hike, and we all were just brutalized. And the Wind River Range is really not meant to be paddled. It's very much a rose-colored glasses place to go and think that there's going to be any glory. It's funny because technically it's granite, so if you squint your eyes, it kind of looks similar to California, but if you're not squinting your eyes, in California, often enough, if you think it might be a portage, it actually might be good to go.
Yeah.
And in the winds, if you think it's possible it's good to go, by the time you actually walk up and look, it is 100% not good to go. So I wouldn't call it a classic, but I've had a lot of dreams of like exploring big time in the West, and being from the East, it's a little harder to do. We've done a lot of. I used to follow like the Range Life blog and like Darren McCoyd's blog, and noticed a lot of times they were doing things very much like the kind of things that I would like to do. So we did a lot of following in the footsteps, and both in California and the Northwest, exploring little creeks, getting into trouble. I remember we did the second descent on Refuse Creek, which is this micro creek that goes into the Mamquam River outside of Squamish. And it was another one of those 10 hours to go a mile and a half kind of days. And there really, it wasn't any lack of boldness or ability, but BC is just known for locked in gorges and situations that are really hard to navigate and hard to like protect. And I remember we're above like this box canyon, and we had just portaged this landslide, which wasn't there when the first descent crew went through, and we had to actually portage through a log jam, like down in the belly of the log jam, carefully trying to not disturb this delicate pile of pickup sticks that's only been there probably since the last, it was probably avalanche from that spring, a couple months earlier, and delicately getting through there, and then realizing, okay, now we don't know what's up. Now things are different. So whatever pictures and writing I saw on the internet about this,
out the window.
It's out the window, and getting to this walled-in spot where there was just like a waterfall in front of us, this box canyon, dropping like 25 feet through this slot that not really runnable, was not going to be good if anyone went in there, and someone was going to have to catch this eddy above it. And the eddy, imagine like a box canyon with just laminar green water pushing straight into a waterfall, and then there's just like a parking spot, a 90-degree cutout in the bedrock that's about the width of a boat. I mean, it's such a, trying to catch an eddy like that. We've all tried to catch eddies like this, and you catch your hip and get swung out. You feel the stern grab.
How close is it to the lip?
Like 10 or 15 feet. Yeah. And I just remember and it was one of those where when you go in, you're going to slosh. Your boat pushes water up into this little pothole eddy, and when that slosh peaks, it's going to slosh back. And so there's like a rebound backwards. And I bow drew into that eddy, put my hand on my skirt, pulled the skirt, and then jumped out, used my paddle to chalk, and then double foot stemmed, and then put my hand down like on the cockpit rim. So, person's safe. Okay, don't lose boat either. That's important. Just to get out so I could catch everyone else, and we can, lower around this waterfall. And that's BC. It's pretty intense. There were definitely times where we did some exploring, and I've always had rose-colored glasses. When I'm on a mission, I want to believe that this beautiful line that I've drawn in my mind is going to play out. But
convincing everybody else in the crew that that's the hard part.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite exploratory runs I did, and I've gone back to it a few times, and I'm actually way overdue, is just the headwaters of the Raven Fork in the Smokies. I think the Raven Fork really got pioneered in the late 90s, and then not long after that, people started hiking over Hyatt Ridge to come in down where the Enlow Creek crossing is. And then I was, just looking at the maps, always doing a bunch of exploring around here, and realized, gosh, I don't think anyone's ever gone into Three Forks, which is kind of for all intents and purposes, probably the highest put in that you would want to do on the Raven Fork. And a friend and I hiked in there once in beautiful fall. I think it was like late September, and Raven Fork was like 20 plus inches, which is kind of what you want. And we did this gnarly hike up in there and survived our way down it. And we're so stoked. I mean, that you have an experience like that, and it really makes you want to seek out more of those experiences, do more exploring. So.
What's the, like, I don't know, this is probably impossible for you to like put into one experience, but what's like the coolest thing you've ever done in a kayak?
Coolest thing I've ever done in a kayak.
Like a set
it can
or
be
a sequence or like a run where you're like, that was intense.
I've hit some ultra classic rivers that I think are hard to beat. You know, the Black Kenny, the Gunnison, Clark's Fork, as far as in the Rockies, just exploration. Done a lot of fun stuff in the Northwest and BC. I would say California has my heart. And I've done a lot of the High Sierra runs there, and they're just wild. But I think what really sticks out to me is I've been able to go there with my son, Alex. 2 seasons we've done in California. The first season we did was kind of like early season in a high water year. So we were creeking a lot. We hit like Big Chimshoe Creek and did his first overnighter, a lot of classic stuff there. And this past summer, I mean, I got to paddle the Middle Kings with Alex as a father-son experience.
That's awesome.
That's hard to beat. I would say that's a recent one. They all feel just transformative while they're happening, right? It's just best trip ever is kind of every trip. But I do think, I did get to paddle the Kings in 2012 with Caleb Paquette and some other heavy hitters, and that stood out to me at the time as, this is my big experience. But then going back with Alex this past summer, and we did a bunch of warm-up runs on some amazing Whitewater, and then heading in there and doing a full week, just me and him, was like, I can't imagine having a more special experience. That is very full circle vibes, just overwhelming experience. Yeah, joy, yeah. And a little suffering.
For people that don't know, Alex is probably one of the, watching him climb, watching him paddle, it's crazy just to see like the next generation like coming around. I don't know. It's cool. It's cool for me to watch from the sideline, just his progression over the years.
It is. It's very different than mine. I was just faking it until I made it, and I was pretty DIY starting out, the DIY types. Yep. I always give a nod of respect to the DIYers out there that you notice they don't have the right stuff and they're doing it kind of oddly, and
they're doing
it like, hey, hats off, you're out there, you're not waiting for someone to tell you how to do it. And that was definitely me, but that's a long, torturous path, and it might take you a while to get. It took me a while to get to where I was going. And with Alex, he's of this new generation. There's a lot of other kids out there similarly skilled who they know exactly what it's supposed to look like. They're able to watch the best paddlers in the world every night before they go to bed, see them doing the latest, greatest things, and the boat designs. Like, he has come in, he's come in where I left off, where I'm peaking, he's coming in, and that's his baseline. And so he's been able to take it beyond what I'm capable of imagining. And part of being on the Kings was like, I've done way more hard exploratory paddling, and like my portaging skills, my getting in and out of my boat skills, knowing how to contain, communicate back upstream, all the peripheral skills that are beyond just kick flips and boofs and stomps. Like, that's, as you get into exploratory paddling, that's often way more important than how flashy you are, right? And the reality is, he's flashy, and somehow he's good at all that other stuff too. Like, he just picked it up quicker, and
dang it,
that's exciting to see.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, at this point, I'm like, I want to get out of the way and then hook in behind him, and just ride the peloton, get in tight, and see. It's going to help me out, right? That's kind of how you've got to look at it.
It was cool. I think you took him down the upper green, and I was just randomly out there paddling with some friends. We were going in the Narrows, and I was just watching you with him. Like, I don't know. It's cool to see a parent showing their thing, and then it becoming the kid's thing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times parents do it the wrong way. They like force it. Like you will do this, and like watching somebody just like do the opposite of like showcasing gratitude, showcasing fun, showcasing that stoke, and like just watching the kid just eating it all up. I don't know. It was cool for me to watch.
Well, that's important. Like we definitely an often topic of conversation after he went to bed when he was little and Laura and I were young parents was we will not be those people who add any pressure. And I don't really think we added much pressure. What I do think is inevitable, given what we like to spend our time doing, is we created a low pressure gradient towards wanting to do outdoor sports. Like it's just going to be real. If he wanted to do them, it's going to be real easy because he's got mom and dad supporting that. But I'm always excited when he is doing something in any given moment that has nothing to do with us. You know, he did basketball as a freshman at school, in high school. You know, that's a weird left turn for a kid who's a kayaker and a climber, and he loved it, and he learned discipline, and they do better than we do. That's the whole idea. That's the hope.
Hopefully,
that's how the road's been paved thus far. So.
I wanted to get your take on, because I know you like paddling with groups sometimes. Like you got your buddies that you hit the stuff with, and you know everyone's got their short list that they like to call. What's your take on soloing? So, I personally enjoy it. I've done it a few times. I do it not regularly, but like, where is your criteria for somebody just getting into the sport? Like, what's your take on like the line that you have to draw personally?
For me, the line has always been, I really, on a ground level, need to feel confident that I know what I'm doing and that I'm always in each instant making a decision based on the fact that no one is there to help, right? And I think there's a little bit of a humble brag vibe to the talking about soloing. And I'm not there are no taboos to me. I think we can talk about any of these topics and find a way to responsibly reflect good ethics and good safety and community awareness with, say, newer paddlers. I think we can talk about soloing without being a bad example. So I'm not a fan of the idea that we shouldn't talk about it. And to me, it has been interesting to me. I've done a fair bit of soloing. Quite a lot, honestly. Partly because I just wanted to go and I didn't have anyone to go with. But I do it very differently when I'm solo. And it's dangerous. There's no backup. So I think you need to have a really firm grasp of where your skills are, what your limitations are, you just got to be really in tune, you know, and if you spend a majority of your time paddling with other folks and letting them play lead on your decision making and telling you what you're good to go for and what you're not good to go for, that's a good sign that you probably don't need to be soloing.
Well, and that's why I brought it up, because I see people, I've talked to new paddlers that are like, I can't find anyone to go with. I'm pushing through this anyway, and I ask them a few questions and they don't have good answers.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted like your layout mentally of like how you approach it, because you know, some I don't know.
There's an article, there's an old website called OregonKayaking.net. I don't know if you ever saw it, but it's a treasure trove of stories and a really comprehensive database. This is one of the early websites that was intended to be a database of rivers to establish record of use for future conservation fights, like kind of strategic. This guy laid out this website. But he's got a lot of great stories on there, and this is all like heavy hitters from the 90s in the Northwest. A lot of old stories about Ben Stooksbury before everyone knew who he was, but there's one story in there, the danger of paddling with others, and and it is interesting because what I love about paddling is full engagement, physical, mental engagement, and that means full honesty with yourself about what you're capable of and what you're not, and full honesty about the potential for distraction. And some of my worst lines and beatdowns and swims ever have been in big groups, sometimes maybe even groups where I had a little self-awareness. Self-awareness is not good for flow state. Mm-hmm. Flow state is a complete lack of self-awareness. It's just fully leaning into a moment. And we do our best work in those situations. And if you're worried, if you're starting to contemplate how good your line's looking right now to the people on the bank watching, your line is going to start deteriorating, right? If you're constantly looking over your shoulder to check on someone, you might not be looking at what's in front of you. If you're trying to keep up with the group that's faster than you, if you're tired and ready to be done and you're waiting for a group that's slower than you, if you're with a group of people who, peer pressure is a real thing, and it's not like in the Dare commercials in the 90s. It's a little more insidious and deep. It's just this desire to do it the way the people you look up to do it. And that's both motivating, but also potential heuristic trap, right? Mm-hmm. What I will say about soloing is you're shedding all of that away. There's no looking over your shoulder. There's no being anywhere else, considering anything else. So for me, I can tap into flow state pretty well when I'm solo. But I also, you have to acknowledge it's dangerous. And I have made mistakes solo, and I have swam solo. And those are moments, those are good lessons, because I was wrong about something. And you just have to really feel like you're not going to be wrong about what you're doing. But I get a lot out of it. I used to think there was more there than there is, because at the end of the day, yeah, maybe you get a slight heightened sense of engagement and momentary state of flow, but there's nothing that special there in the solo experience. Yeah. And I just had to do a ton of it to realize the hollowness of thinking that there's some righteous gem available underneath this. If you're willing to boldly, sometimes boldness doesn't give you anything other than the exposure to more risk, right? Yeah. And I think I've learned that by now. So for me these days, it's an occasional utilitarian move. Is just load up the e-bike or the running shoes. And
how did you get into the guidebook stuff? Like, how did that whole thing come about?
I think I had always had, I would say I was a bit of a collector with all the negative, you can have some negative connotations to that mentality. And even today I see it, you got the people doing the 900 miler thing in the Smokies. Oh, I got to hit every, I'm working on my second map. I'm doing every trail in the Smokies. And in my mind, I live right near the Smokies, and I'm like, some of these trails suck. I don't want to do these trails. And then some of them I want to do 100 times. So I'll never get enough of it. So to me, the illusion of completeness, like completion is an illusion. And whatever you think, whatever degree of completion you think you're chasing in this manic kind of collector way is really just created. It's a social construct, right? Like all the trails in the Smokies, some of the best trails in the Smokies aren't on the map. They're not official trails. And some of the most popular ones are the worst ones. So it's that it's all this, this idea of trying to collect everything. Early on, that was a lesson I needed to learn directly. And so I really wanted to see everything. I wanted to do every river in the Southeast. And I come by that honestly. I do want to explore. I love going around corners. I love being on a run. I don't know what's around the corner, or I've never been here. I get to finally feel, what is it like to be here? Mm-hmm. What is it like to run the rapids that are on this river? So that's an honest motivation I had. And through that, that's kind of the work of putting together a guidebook. Like if you were to set a goal early to put together a guidebook, then you would necessarily need to do those exact things. Right. So I was doing the work whether I knew it or not.
And you were logging everything? Did you have like an Excel spreadsheet?
Not initially. Now I do, but it was more just, I just wanted to absorb it organically. And if I had started to forget about a run, it was time to go back, right? Okay. And but then I started getting a little more organized. I got a camera. I started taking pictures. Now I'm really doing the work, right? Because if you're doing the runs and you know the runs and you're taking the pictures and you understand the logistics, the rest is just hard work and writing and being inspired and writing about it. So I didn't know I was working on it when I started working on it. And then I just kind of slowly became aware of, this is what I'm doing. Like, this can be a thing. And then it was much more focused and concerted and organized.
So for people that want to purchase those, where can they find them? And I'll say these are phenomenal. Like,
thank you.
You've done an amazing job. Before they came out, it was literally like calling somebody, texting somebody, hey, you did this 5 years ago. What can you give me? And now it's,
Well, and, you know, first of all, it's a community project. I had so much help from people, including yourself, if I recall. Get some pictures from you. So, yeah, it's a community project. I definitely did a lot of work, but got a lot of help from other folks. And another thing is they're obsolete the second they come out.
Yep.
You know, the second they print, things, you know, you start accruing this list of things that are changing or outdated. And but they're the best we got. And so you can go to my publisher's website, wolverinepublishing.com. They're a great outfit in Colorado. They do lots of outdoor publishing projects, and my project's one of them. So wolverinepublishing.com, you can pick up the books. And still super relevant. I've been getting people paddling up to me saying, are you going to have to write a third edition now because of Helene? And what I would say is no. They're still mostly pretty spot on. Obviously, there's been some big changes on the Rocky Broad, the Green, the Pigeon, the French Broad a little bit, the Nolichucky. But by and large, these books are still super relevant. I don't know if there'll ever be more as we continue to move towards the AI future of having a chip in your brain that just tells you where to go and how to hit each boof and all that. So this is fully from the analog era. But if you're into such things as, you know, physically bounded books, then yeah, I recommend picking them up.
I love them. I think they're great. How do you balance like you're like, so talk a little bit about what you're doing at Ace, and then how do you balance, like, that's kind of like your gig now, but like with your personal paddling you still like getting out and doing, and then like the professional side of like paddling and guiding that you do, and then like your family responsibilities like Alex and Laura, like how do you balance all of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in a way I'm blessed. You know, up until I started teaching and guiding, I just couldn't get enough, and I was, like I said, I was manically chasing hard all the time when I wasn't predisposed to be doing family stuff or work stuff. Now, I get my paddling fill from my work, so it's totally changed the ability to have an ideal balance. I feel like I've never had more balance than now. And that's a big struggle. I mean, that's a fundamental struggle in life, is balance. That's really like, that is how are you going to blend your priorities to where they reflect what you want to be doing. But Ace is awesome, man. I mean, having that opportunity from Joe has just been, it's this given me the best years of my life, I think. But it's great. Yeah, I do mostly private instruction, one-on-one. I focus on kind of organic, more word-of-mouth advertising. I do have some social media presence, but I really try to focus on just building a community slowly and organically, and not having people, not trapping people into swiping their credit card based on what I throw on the internet.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work long term. Like authenticity, like I work in marketing, right? So like I'm always the person that's the rose-colored glasses, seeing the best in every opportunity, and like I see these people do that, what you're talking about.
Yep.
And they're like just after it for like, it's the authentic people that last.
Right. I mean, I do love it, and like investing in my students is fully, it's fulfilling.
Yes.
To the ultimate degree, and I didn't know it was going to be that way, but it absolutely is. And I dive deep. There's a lot of different things you could focus on with instruction. There's a lot of different niches, a lot of directions you can go. I think right now we're in a current climate where the trend is towards the mental game. There's a lot of mental agility and like mindfulness, performance mentality, coaching. And I think that's something I'm always focusing on with my students, and is really just kind of a given element to any day with a student on the water, that we're going to take where you're at, what your strengths and weaknesses are, both from kayaking ability, but also decision making, being able to perform, learning how to make a decision and then commit and then connect to your sensory environment before you execute in a way that's going to ground you and give you the ability to get into flow state and focus. That's all important, but Joe and I also have a huge focus on mechanics and movement. At the end of the day, we want to be able to coach you on how to operate, how to be ethical, how to be a positive member of your paddling community. It's a small community. And just how to have good style. And this is not just style and movement. But at the end of the day, we're here to also help you get your stroke mechanics in line, help you learn how to read the water and like plan your lines in a way that are working with the water. So for me, I've kind of moved into a niche focus of really talking about flow and chark and just kind of these more, there's a little bit of bohemian vibe to those words. And I love that. I think that's great. And I lean into that. But I also think there's actually some physical utilitarian element to ideas like chark and flow that are just straight up really how we're going to take our paddling to the next level, be able to move with ultimate efficiency, have power on demand, and feel like we're working with the water and one with the water. So that's a big focus of mine. But it's all there. I mean, I try to instill in my students like the importance of being healthy, taking care of your body, your joints, the importance of mobility routine, working out, strength training, cardio, eating right, taking the right vitamins and supplements, hydration, like all these silly things that we knew all along, that we heard since we were kids in school. I mean, it's one thing to hear it and know it academically. It's another thing to live it and breathe it. But just trying to get people to go all in, like whatever they're into. This is not just your hobby. This is your lifestyle. And if you're a 9-to-5er, that's part of your lifestyle. But then we need to think about what are you doing when you're not working or when you're not with, spending time with family. But this is all a balancing act. I want to spend time with my family. Laura and I are so lucky. Like Alex still hangs out with us a fair bit. I mean, he's got his autonomy, and I think any young man there is absolutely a ground floor layer to our psyche that says, get out, go forth, make your own. And he's got all that in the works. But at the same time, we still spend a lot of time together. We do a lot of paddling together. We do a lot of rock climbing together. And so if I'm not working on the river, it's family time or just like local life maintenance, taking care of bills, planning. A lot of times when I'm off and I'm not teaching, I'm at the house and I'm either working out or doing emails, booking flights, travel, rental cars, coordinating, started working in Chile, coordinating on these kind of trips. So I've got trips, I've got this annual calendar, this annual rhythm that really, I love it. It's kind of based on the water and the seasons and the aesthetics and the beauty of being able to travel and be outside all times a year. And, but I do travel a lot, so I got to make sure when I'm home that I've got time built in to spend time with family. That's what I want to be doing. Yeah. So my day off, usually I'm just hoping Laura and Alex are available in some capacity, and then climbing's been good for us. It's a much better family activity than paddling, I think. We can all, Laura can be on one route of difficulty, I can be on another, and Alex can be on some hairball.
And you're all within earshot. Yeah.
Yeah, we're right here. Yeah. We're in dry clothes. It's beautiful. There's no shuttle. There's no, oh, you can't do this river. We'll see you in 12 hours. Yeah. There's none of that. So that's been a really fun thing for us.
How many days a year are you coaching? Or are you teaching on Ace stuff?
I would say I'm like around 200 days working. Dang. So it's a lot. I continue to learn the things I already know, you know, as we're talking about making sure I've got time. I'm building in time to rest. I build in time to work out. I build in days like this. I'm off this week, yesterday through tomorrow. I'm mountain biking every day. Nice. I don't have any climbing partners, so I'm doing like quick mountain bike rides. I'm actually going to do like a trail run up Brady Mountain on the way back because I've never been there.
Dude, that's my jam.
So I'm still always kind of like, even this morning, I had no time. I couldn't find a climbing partner for after I'm always trying to link things up. Yeah. You'd probably talk to Jim about that. Jim's kind of the master, Jim Janney, at that. But yeah, I was like, okay, Cumberland Trail, hadn't done this section. I'm going to out and back it, on the way home just to get some air and see something I hadn't seen, even if it's just kind of on a down day. But yeah, being intentional, like all the time. I hurt my shoulder like 19 months ago, Limbo Gorge. I subluxed my left shoulder. Finally happened after 25 years of putting zero effort into maintaining physical health or shape. Finally got called on it, right? And so that was a huge narrative flip for me, where now it's all day, every day. Everything I'm doing in every moment has to do with my physical health, my ability to continue doing this job that I know doesn't always have like a clean exit strategy. So
what would some of your advice be to like somebody who maybe they're not taking lessons with you, but like somebody that wants to get into paddling? Like what's kind of like a concise path that you've seen work for people? What's the headspace they need to be in? What's the things they need to be working on?
I would say you got to find that group of people that's going to like keep you safe and have good advice, right? Take you to the right places, not rush you into things. I'm a big fan in like really developing solid skill on low stress, low consequence whitewater before you start ratcheting up. I'm pretty conservative. Like I would say to the extent that like if you're looking for an instructor that's going to throw you down something you're barely going to survive, I can refer you to somebody else, but yeah. I'm a big fan of the slow, thoughtful progression curve. And, what did that for me was just try not to watch too many YouTube videos. Try not to get too much of an idea of where you think you want to go with this when you start. Because when you starting is one of the most beautiful moments in any pursuit, because there's so many unanswered questions. And if you are trying to answer those questions before they're ready to be answered, you're kind of creating a false path that may not actually be leading you where you would have otherwise led yourself if you just kind of focus on where you are. I remember when I started paddling, I had a buddy. I was a freshman in college, and I had a buddy who wanted to kayak too. We went to the Hiwassee every day we could for like a year. I knew the Ocoee was there. I knew it wasn't for me. I didn't know if I'd ever run the Ocoee. I wanted to get a stern squirt. I wanted to get an ender. I wanted to surf. And I wanted to just paddle the Hiwassee. That was it. And I was so enamored with moving around on eddy lines, trying to play boat. I didn't know what the far extent, the final product could be. I was really just focused on the immediate joy of being on the river and engaging with the river features that were on the rivers I was paddling. And so I often have students, I get a pretty good vibe of how people approach things, because working as an instructor, I work with so many different personality types. And a common thread I see that I'm always kind of trying to, get folks to back off of is, they've been paddling 3 months and they already are, this is pre-Helene, but a common thing was, I want to be on the green next summer.
Right.
And it does, when you're a new paddler, it really does kind of look like people are just peeling out and going down that thing.
Some people are.
Yeah, right?
Literally.
Right?
Like I've seen people in eddies on the green. And I'm like, how long have you been paddling, man? They're like 6 months.
Yeah,
I'm like, what are you doing out here?
And we got to be careful, because the ability to get good quick has never been more juiced than it is now, and it's legit. And you see like Shane Simoneau, he's been kayaking 4 years. He ran the Stikine, right? Like, did it well. Now, I'm all about folks coming up quick, but you got to acknowledge the cards you have. If you're 38 and you have a full-time job and you got 2 kids at home, or you're divorced and you get every other weekend, let's take a realistic look at where you could end up going. And it may not, the reality is the joy and engagement available to you as a beginner on easy rivers, just being blown away by surfing a tiny wave, like just the notion that surfing works and is a real thing, should be something that fascinates you forever. But it won't fascinate you forever if it doesn't fascinate you
now
for a while now. And so I think being super stoked on what you're doing, try not to get too caught up in the progression. I think the best progressions happen the best vibe and progression is being shocked and suddenly confused as to how did I get on this river? You know, if you all of a sudden you wake up, you're on the Upper Gauley, or you're on some hard river out west, and you're just like, wow, how did I get here? Well, you're probably shocked on how you got there because you were too focused on living each moment and getting the most out of where you were in each moment. And that is actually what's going to get you the furthest. Whereas if you're like clutching for this river you think you want, and then you're kind of rushing through all the preparatory rungs on that ladder to get there, well, yeah, you're not building the skill set you really need to thrive in that environment. Right. You're trying to climb a ladder that's really just like a social construct. It's not real. Like any river has the ability to give a transformative experience. So my advice would be enjoy what you're doing now and really learn to love the physical and mental engagement of simple movements.
What are some things you're looking forward to? What's left on the list? What does the future for Kirk Eddlemon look like?
It's weird. There was always a super exhaustive list, and there's still like a list of rivers that, I mean, I travel a lot, and if you were to check my socials, it probably appears that I'm living that trust fund life, just cruising around, getting to do one cool thing after another. And I am super grateful. I by no means am not aware of how much privilege and opportunity that I've been able to take advantage of. But I kind of have to operate within my means, and this is a delicate balancing act. So there are rivers I'd love to do. Some rivers I'd love to do that I may never get around to are like the Humla Karnali, the Tuliberry, the Zanskar, like some of these eastern rivers. Maybe go to Kyrgyzstan one day. I want to do some of the big canyons in Peru, like the Acambamba Abismo, the Colca, the Cotahuasi.
Jim got into some of that when he was in. He
has crushed. Like that year they had, I don't know if it's 2013 or 2014.
He told me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I'd love, Jim is someone to look to. He knows how to pick out a good river always. And so a lot of the stuff he's done I'd like to do. Still, part of me wants to go to the Stikine. I'm still kind of mixed on it. Alex wants to go up there, so it's something that we kind of pretend that we're seriously interested in, maybe going up there. But I also have never had less drive to have to go see new things. I do just generally get to by virtue of what I do for a living. I'm in California for several months a year. I'm in Chile a lot. Like, I'm gonna see new stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna continue to see new things, but as you see more things, there's a proportionally smaller ratio of things you've not seen, and unless you're really changing it up on a continental level or really committing, it's I'm going to see less and less new stuff as I go on, and I've never been more content with that. I'm honestly, like, what inspires me right now, I can't wait for it to start raining and just go get a powder day on the Caney Fork or Bee Creek, or get like a big link up in the Smokies, or I always look forward to Cali season. Pretty easy to please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, man, thanks for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy.
Yeah. So thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. Who's someone you would recommend me reach out to try to get on here?
I think, like we were saying, Tony Robinson or Caleb Paquette. I think they both have interesting perspectives that would add to what you got going on.
Dude, thanks for everything. I'll let you get out of here and get on your adventure.
Thanks.
But hey, best of luck in all your future stuff, man.
Thanks, Chad. I love what you're doing here, man. This is fun to be a part of it.
Appreciate it.